My name is John Roskam. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, and it's my honour and pleasure as a Victorian to give the vote of thanks to a former Queensland Premier, and in the spirit of federalism, I think it's appropriate that a Victorian introduced Campbell. Tonight we heard something very important and significant about localism, about the idea that government for the people should be as close to the people as possible. I'd go a little further than Campbell. I would argue that we're more than just adrift. We are marooned. The idea of Australia as a prosperous, free country is slowly fading away, and I think, Campbell, what you provided tonight is a pathway forward for all politicians, for the community, for the media, for stakeholders. I hate that term, that's a Canberra term. To start identifying a way to a more prosperous and better flourishing Australia. Campbell's comments tonight were prefaced, not all smart people are in Canberra. I'd actually, again, go further. Are there any? Down south where I live, I mentioned to a few people that I had the honour of providing the vote of thanks. And a couple of people said, "Oh, Campbell Newman. Oh, Campbell Newman." And I said, what's the issue? And they said, look, from down here, we looked at him and our conclusion was he tried to do too much too soon. And I thought, how proud you must be to have that description. When, exactly as you say, when Australia is marooned and we have politicians afraid to make a decision, afraid to communicate with the public and the community, the idea that a Premier would grasp the nettle, would attempt to make change, I think is something important and refreshing. Of course, the electorate always get it right, except when they get it wrong. So I was there working for the Kennett government in '99 when the Victorian people got it a bit wrong. In 2007, I think the Australian people got it a bit wrong, and of course in 2015, I think, sadly, Queensland got it wrong. I had the privilege a couple of weeks ago of going to the annual dinner of the Australian Institute for Progress, and someone who many Queenslanders would know, Sir Leo Hilshire, spoke about the challenge confronting Queensland. $80 billion of debt within 4 years Queenslanders are going to have to be paying off, and Campbell started to address that. Morgan, introducing Campbell, spoke about his many achievements, and there were many. There was one that Morgan didn't mention, and it was something that, again, down south, when we saw news of it, we knew that the Newman government would be a good and effective government. It's outlined in a marvellous book that if you don't already have, you should have. Can Do, Campbell Newman, The Challenge of Reform, published by our good friend Anthony Capello, who has established Concord Press here in Brisbane. It's written by Gavin King. Anthony came up to me tonight with one of the copies that you can purchase at the end of this evening, and I said, don't worry, Anthony, I brought up my own copy because it is so good and so relevant to tonight. So the special thing that Campbell did that I wanted to acknowledge was what started to become public on the day the Newman government was sworn in on the 3rd of April. And on that day, it became public that the government had axed the Queensland Premier's Literary Awards. So as Gavin goes on to explain, it saved a sum of $244,000. a figure the left believed was paltry. The flowing tap of grants, cheques and funding had been turned on for so long, the left had lost perspective on the value of public dollars. And that's exactly what Campbell was talking about this evening. And Gavin goes on. I don't know Matthew Condon, but it sounds like you do, Campbell. The Courier Mail reporter Matthew Condon typified the left's response as though the Premier himself had driven a fascist-branded stake through Condon's delicate literary heart. Abandoning any notion of journalistic balance with his distinctly ostentatious prose in full flight, Condon predicted the axing of the awards would send Queensland back to the Dark Ages. Condon called the Literary Awards an irreplaceable treasure that speak to children dreaming of a career in books and writing. Here's what Campbell said in response. There's an old saying, if you look after the pennies, well, the pounds will look after themselves. You get a $2.8 billion deficit by being wasteful and reckless in spending a dollar at a time. That is how it happens. And that is exactly what Campbell was talking about this evening. The further removed government is from the people, the less it cares about the people and about their money and about their freedoms. Campbell, it was a wonderful presentation this evening. We're so glad you could be with us tonight at the Samuel Griffith Society, and I think you have charted a way forward for all of us as we stop being marooned, as we stop being stuffed, and as we start growing Australia again as a free and prosperous country. Thank you.